Everyone, so today I would like to explain Chapter 21, Classroom-Based Assessment from Teaching by Principles book by Douglas Brown. So let's get started. Okay, norm-reference, reference, and criterion reference. In norm reference test, each test taker's score is interpreted in relation to a mean, median, standard deviation, and percentile rank. The purpose in such test is to place test takers along a mathematical continuum in rank order and a little else. And criterion reference tests, on the other hand, are designed to give test takers feedback on specific course or lesson objective or the criteria of the course. Classroom achievement test uh, involving just the students in one class and connected to a curriculum are typical of criterion reference testing. And then some practical steps to test construction. First is test toward clear, unambiguous objective. Doing so enables you to focus clearly on such objectives when it comes to either informal or formal assessment. Likewise, for a test that you design, make sure that students actually perform the criterion objective that your test was designed to assess. From your objective, draw up test specifications. Test specifications for classroom use can be a simple and practical outline of your test. And then draft your test. A first draft will give you a good idea of what the test will look like, how students will perceive it, the extent to which authentic language and context are present, the length of the listening stimuli, how well a storyline comes across, how things like the close testing format will work, and other practicalities. And then pilot the test in a trial run. In an ideal situation, you would try out for your test on some students before actually administering them. But practically, piloting a test with your students is virtually impossible, and so you must do what you can to bring to your students an instrument that is to the best of your ability, practical, reliable, and valid. And then revise your test. At this stage, you will work through all the items you have devised and asked a number of important questions. For example, are the direction to each section absolutely clear? Is there an example items for each sections? And does each items measure a specified objective? And then uh, finalize the task in your and finalize the test. In your final editing of the test, make sure your test is neat and uncluttered on the page, reflecting all the care and precisions you have to put into its constructions, and then utilize your feedback after administering the test. After you give the test, you will have some information about how easy or difficult it was, about the time limits, and about your students' reaction to it and their general performance. Take note of these forms of feedback and use them for making your next test. And then provide ample washback. As you evaluate the test and return it to your students, your feedback should reflect the principles of beneficial washback. Use the information from the test performance as a springboard for review and for moving on to the next unit. And then transforming and adapting existing. One of the ways to bias your test for best performance is by encouraging before, during, and after test options. So I will mention for several points. Before test, it's like give students all the information you can about the test, and then encourage students to do a systematic review of a material, and then give them practice tests or exercises if available. And then during the test, tell students to quickly look over the whole test in order to get a good grasp of its different parts, and then remind them to mentally figure out how much time they will need for each part. And then for after the task, when you return the task, include feedback on specific things the students did well, what he or she didn't do well, and if possible, the reasons for such a judgment on your part. And then advise the students to pay careful attention in class to whatever you say about the task result. And then establish face validity. Means that in the student's perception, the task is valid. You can help to foster that perception in the following ways. Provide a carefully constructed, well thought out format. Make sure the task can be complete within the allot time limit, and then design items that are clear and uncomplicated. Make all your direction crystal clear, and then design tasks that are familiar and relate to students' coursework, and then coach a difficulty task that is appropriate for your student, and then design authentic tasks. Make sure that the language in your task is as natural and authentic as possible. Also try to give language some context so that items aren't just a string or unrelated language sample. And then transforming and adapting existing. Uh, so distinguish between summative and formative assessment as a few of your classroom tasks will be summative. They will serve the purpose of summing up what students can perform, and placement tests, final exam, and end of unit tests are typical of this category. Other tests will very clearly have a formative purpose. They help students to check progress, to discern areas that need improvement, and to give them some future goals to pursue. And then work for beneficial washback. One way to enhance beneficial washbacks is to provide a generous number of specific comments on test performance. We teachers in our overwork lives can slip into the habit of returning tasks to students with a letter grade or number score on them and consider our job complete. And then alternatives in assessment. Several alternatives in assessment will be briefly discussed here. So the first is the portfolios. A portfolio is a purposeful collection of students' work that demonstrates to students and others their efforts, progress, and achievements in given areas. And then journals. Journals can have a number of purposes: language learning logs, grammar discussions, responses to readings, self-assessment, and reflection of attitudes and feelings about oneself. And then conferences. Conferencing has become a standard part of the process approach to teaching writing as a teacher, in a conversation about a draft facilitates the improvement of the written work. And then observation. Observations can become systematic, planned procedures for real-time, almost surreptitious recording of student verbal and nonverbal behavior. And then the last is self and peer assessment. A number of advantages of self and peer assessment: speed, direct involvement of students, the encouragement of autonomy, and increased motivation because of self-involvement in the process of learning. And then scrutinizing the alternatives. First is maximizing practicality and reliability. For most standardized tests are almost by definition highly practical, reliable instruments. They are designed to minimize time and money on the part of test designer and test taker, and to be painstakingly accurate in their scoring. And then performance-based assessment. O'Malley and Valdez-Pierce, 1996, considered performance-based assessment to be a subset of authentic assessment with the following characteristics. So here students make a constructive response. They engage in higher order thinking with open-ended tasks, and then tasks are meaningful and engaging. Tasks call for the integration of language skills. Both process and product are assessed, and the depth of our students' battery is emphasized over breadth. Okay, so that's all about chapter 21. Thank you for your attention and see you.